Are we live on YouTube? Have we not done that?
We're live on YouTube.
Okay.
So I'm just taking a countdown.
Huh? The countdown.
So we're good with sound out here, yeah? Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our next event, the third tasting from the Treaty Whiskey Society. Just want to welcome you all here. It's great to have everyone back again. Tonight's event, Robert couldn't make it down with us this evening, so we have got him on a live stream here with us. Shouldn't have any of the delays or anything that we had last time, so it should work out pretty well. We've tested it and it seems to be going well. So, yeah, tonight's event has been organised by James Smith and Tommy Smith, two brothers who were involved since the beginning of the society as well. Put in a lot of effort to make tonight happen, and yeah, it's great to have the support and to see everyone chipping in to make this happen for all of us. So it's great. So yeah, welcome to those at home too. While you're all sitting at home in your PJs on the couch, we're all here sipping pints and drinks in the room. So yeah, great. I'll let you jump in, James, and we'll get Robert on then.
Yep. So hi everyone on YouTube and hi everyone here. Like Andrew said, I'm James, and I'd just like to start off thanking Jerry Flannery's and for letting us host here at 1314. It's absolutely phenomenal. So I hope we can all support as much as we can and hit the bar running tonight. Because over the last couple of months, obviously, it's been hard for everyone. And so as Andrew was saying, we have Robert Caldwell here. He is a global ambassador for Teelings, and we're absolutely honoured to have him here tonight because he has 4 fantastic samples he organised for us. We have a single malt versus a single pot still. And is he here now?
Yeah, ready? He's ready to jump in here.
So really, without further ado, I'll leave it to the expert tonight, and we can start drinking. Thank you.
So, I like that. Let's start drinking.
Welcome, Robert.
Hi, Robert. How are you? You're good?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. Really looking forward to tonight. Should be a bit of fun.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's been very anticipated anyway. We had a great response for it.
Yeah, no, like thanks for reaching out and asking me. I mean, I'm really, really sorry that I can't be there. A bit of a return to normality. I was in London until maybe 4 hours ago. The timing didn't really work out, but hopefully now with restrictions opening up again, we can start to have more and more of these in-person tastings, and I can join you in person too. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Fantastic.
You've got a nice selection of whiskies behind you there in the background. So.
I know. I'm a bit jealous.
Some of them are real. Some of them are also real. Part of the benefits of the job.
So, how would you? We start with the first one now. Are we all
do you want to give us? Well, do you want to give us a bit of background into Teeling and your
slides and
what you're doing with them? And
Yes, of course. So basically, quick overview on what we're doing tonight. I can't see the audience, but it's fine. We're going to have the intermediary there. Oh, look at that. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Quick hand. Nice. Good to see. Making sure that you can hear me. So a bit of a different tasting tonight. I know you guys like to do the side-by-side stuff. I thought what better way than put up two very, very famous whiskey categories, especially here in Ireland. We're going to be tasting a core range single malt from Teeling Whiskey Distillery and a core range single pot still for Teeling Whiskey Distillery, and talk about those categories, but also how we approach them. Everyone knows about a single malt. Most people assume Scotch. Every time I hear, give me a premium Scotch in a movie, I'm like, and the single pot still, obviously in Ireland, very much dominated by one or two companies. So very much how we, the Teeling Whiskey Distillery and Teeling Whiskey Company, approach that, very, very exciting, emerging, uniquely Irish category. And then we're going to follow it up by a bit more of a premium set of the same thing. So whiskey number 3 is an age statement single malt from Teeling, showcasing our innovation at various price points with the Renaissance series. So showcasing how we extract weird and wonderful flavors from that specific finishing cask, and then finishing with something we found truly unique, a single cask. I think if those that know anything about Teeling know that when we were discovering our single pot still, we put that distillate into a number of casks to see what we could come up with, because we knew we needed to be something different to the likes of Redbreast, Powers John's Lane, Green Spots. We wanted to kind of broaden the horizons of that category. So pot still went into a number of casks. And this is an example of just one cask being wholly unique and fantastic from a flavor perspective in and of itself. So it's a single cask that's only available in Distillery. So we'll break those down as we go through. But that's the brief overview of tonight. Quick overview of Teeling. I've got a little deck here. I don't like talking about the deck. I mean, I can tell you the brand information and I can answer questions. Actually, there's a good point. Questions. What we might do tonight is after each whiskey, rather than, because I know there's people online, there's people in the room. So to give everyone kind of equal footing, equal grounding, we'll have questions after each whiskey. And I want to make it clear that you're welcome to share any and all questions. Please ask away. There's going to be different levels of whiskey knowledge in the room, and you only get to learn by asking the questions. And that's what I'm here for. Hopefully I can answer the questions to the best of my ability. But again, every day is a school day. I'm still learning things about the whiskey category. I'm lucky enough that we make a lot of different whiskeys, so I get to learn a lot every day. But yeah, feel free to ask any and all questions, and we'll address them.
We've actually got people online who are, so tell us where you are. Any questions you have, drop them in.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to get them up on screen here. We've got someone from Poland joining us,
Nice.
So from far away. So it's great. Who's come to us from the Teeling tribe through Facebook. So
Legends. Gotta love the tribe. All right, well, I'll put my deck up on screen here, and I'll just run through a little bit of what we do at Teeling. But I promise, I won't talk for 45 minutes before you get a whiskey in you. It'll only be about 15, maybe 10. I'll aim for 5, and then we'll start on whiskey number 1. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. Can you guys see the deck? Do I have to put that up? Might have to add them to the.
Yeah, you tell us when you have it up.
It's up. You've just got to add it. So they're in the green room.
Oh, sorry, I got to add it here. Okay, so is it this? It's not
There
this.
you go.
No. This one.
There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Hi, guys. A little bit about the Teeling Whiskey Distillery and with Teeling Whiskey Company. That's me. My name's Rob. It used to be my job to travel the world and drink whiskey. Now it's sit in my room on a webcam drinking whiskey. But thankfully, as of Monday, I'm traveling again. So absolutely exciting to get out and see people again. Obviously, everywhere is on the radar, and I'd love to be everywhere all at once. But slowly but surely. But exciting to be able to leave this room again. I've been in the industry, as you can probably see there. I was born in Australia. I've only ever bartended. I bartended for more than half my life now. I am 40. I started bartending at 18 and bartended all over the world. And then in 2011, made the mistake of moving to Ireland and falling in love with Irish whiskey and an Irish girl. So you're trapped with me now. That's me. Quick one. So Irish whiskey, as we saw there very recently, news article today, Irish whiskey looks to be overtaking Scotch sales as near as the 2030 range. Really, really exciting stuff. But Irish whiskey, yes, one of the fastest growing spirits categories in the world. A lot of interest and a lot of growth in the category. So really, really exciting stuff. So before we talk about Teeling specifically, God, it's exciting to see Irish whiskey growing and growing and growing on a daily scale. So much coming from the category. So it's exciting to see, and we're getting to do some fantastic stuff in that category. Teeling whiskey is very much family led. You may have heard, but for those that haven't, Teeling Whiskey Company was established in 2012 by these two gentlemen, Jack and Stephen Teeling. The Teeling family have been distilling in Ireland since the 1980s, the immediate family with their father, John, and there is links back as far as the 1700s from the Teeling Whiskey family distilling in Dublin. I've got a couple of dates here, actually. Quick overview there. So 1782, there was a Walter Teeling Distillery in Dublin. 2012 was when the Teeling Whiskey Company was born. Obviously, there is whiskey in the Teeling family before that date, but they are now owned by another company. We don't tend to spend a lot of time talking about them, but if you have questions, we more than happily answer them. And 2015 is a massive, important date for us. It's the opening of the doors to the first new distillery in Dublin in 125 years, the Teeling Whiskey Distillery, producing the first whiskey to come from Dublin in a very, very long time. So really, really exciting and also historically significant. Obviously, you've seen this. This is our logo. It's our stamp of approval. It's representative of the rise of the Irish whiskey industry as well as the rebirth of the Teeling family name in Irish whiskey. So you can see there the bulbous shape of an Irish pot still, the alcoholic vapors forming the flames of the phoenix. The phoenix being that mythological creature that symbolizes rebirth. When it dies, it goes into ash, and then from the ashes, a new phoenix is reborn. So very symbolic of the Irish whiskey category and how it was once in this golden era. Everything went to hell. And now we're seeing a rebirth, a revival, a renaissance, a revolution, if you will, of Irish whiskey. So this is very symbolic of the Teeling Whiskey Company. And yeah, that's it. So I didn't need to talk that long. I want to get a whiskey in people's hands. So let's grab whiskey number 1 and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for these. Before I was drinking whiskey, I was a fan of red wine and drank a lot of red wine. So these casks, red wine has been used in a lot of casks of these. So it's an exciting taste. Yeah.
Actually, you bring up a good point. So I know you guys are probably well capable right now, but is there any kind of first timers in the audience? Anyone that doesn't really do a whiskey tasting all that often?
Nope.
They all like their whiskey here.
Dedicated.
Okay. We won't talk about nosing. We won't talk about taste. We won't talk about mouthfeel or finish or sharing tasting notes. But yeah, we want to make everyone feel comfortable. So for those that want to ask any questions about how to nose whiskey, taste whiskey, you know, that's the thing. Like whiskey, it's not a wine tasting. It's not a beer tasting. This is high proof spirits, and like soup, you know, if you imbibe too quickly, it can shock the system. You know, we've probably all been there where you've had a dram that's a high ABV on an empty stomach, and all of a sudden you get burning and reflux. You know, you want to slowly acclimatize the palate to drinking whiskey. So that's
something we haven't done. I mean, in any of the first tastings, we haven't given any pointers as to, you know, how to taste. So I mean, if you can do that, great. We'd love to hear all that too.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Basically my background is bartending, like you said, but I had to be taught the hard way. It wasn't even hard. It was actually a brilliant experience. But I worked in a Scotch whiskey bar in Canada, and the owner said to me, he said, "How much do you know about whiskey?" I said, "Oh, you can always learn more." He said, "Good answer." So he bought me a tasting journal and said, "Every night of the week, I want you to taste whiskeys." Obviously, at the start, it was burning, it was hot, it was whiskey. I couldn't figure out anything. But I'm still developing my palate now 10, 15 years later. And a couple of little tricks have always done me very well, even after I get to drink whiskey every day of my working week. So yeah, whenever I'm approaching a whiskey tasting, these are all higher than 46%. So 46% ABV is the minimum you're going to be trying today. So yeah, with any tasting, nose. Let's break it down into the three components: nose, taste, and finish. Nose. So you've got your lovely Glencairn glasses, or you've got your Tour glasses, or even a Sherry Copita. The shape of the glass kind of narrowing to a point. These are designed for the aromas to kind of open up in this bulbous shape and then funnel to a point for you to be able to nose it. What you don't want to do is whack your nose in and just breathe in, because you're going to burn out your palate. You're going to get stung by the harsher notes, and you're going to miss a lot of the delicacies. There's 3,000 flavor components in whiskey, and a lot of them are hidden by the bigger, bolder, alcoholic-driven notes and aromas. If you don't believe me that aroma is a contributor to taste, buy Skittles. You know, the candy, the American candy Skittles, Taste the Rainbow. Buy them in your next shop and eat them with your nose pit shut. There's no flavor in that candy. There's only aroma.
Yeah.
So aroma, hugely important with whiskey. So anytime I'm nosing, get the glass and I slowly bring it up to my nose and just breathe in through my nose with my mouth open and just go closer and closer until I start to pick it up. And I never kind of whack my nose in unless I'm 4 or 5 whiskeys deep and I'm in a busy room. But you just want to be delicate with it. There's a lot going on there, and you've got 4 whiskeys ahead of you, so you don't want to burn your palate out. Whiskey number 1. So what we're looking for on the nose here is a vibrant fruitiness. This is a great example of an Irish single malt. Irish single malts tend to be quite fruit forward. So the fruits, we're thinking of orchard fruits: apple, pears, peaches. For the whiskey consumer, the global whiskey consumer that enjoys a complex single malt, this would fit in with, say, your lighter Japanese styles, maybe Hakushu, and then your scotches, obviously your Speyside, your Highland, your Lowland. So Aberlour, Glenmorangie, Clogelicky, Auchentoshan, and brands like that. Obviously, we do peated whiskey now in Ireland, which is great. Fruit forward whiskey tend to be, very kind of hugely different in terms of the single malt Scotch category anyway. So Irish single malts tend to be quite fruit forward. Bushmills 10 was probably the greatest example for a long period of time. of a kind of apple orchard led single malts. That was, one of the first kind of single malts that I had when I came to Ireland a long time ago, pre-Teeling era. And that kind of helped me define Irish single malt into the broader single malt category that for me had been very dominated by the Scotch. So if you've got any nosing, you've got the tasting mat there. So we're down.
Yeah, everyone's got one of these about at home and here. So,
so
I mean, it's I've always been a fan of, like you said, of the Bushmills 10, but also of the Teeling single malt. And something I never realized was what I found out from setting up or helping to set up the tasting was this is a combination of 5 wine casks. I never knew that. So it's great to get that bit of information and see how that influences the whiskey. So.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So not only is it a great example of an Irish single malt, very fruit forward, very vibrant, but it's also a great example of what we do at Teeling. And I can stand up in front of the room and say, oh, we're innovative, and we use up to 100 different casks in the maturation of Teeling whiskey. This is true. We have done this. We have a back catalogue of whiskey that showcases that. But what better way to prove it than to show it, to taste it?
Mm.
So on the bottle, it just says, it doesn't even say wine cask. It doesn't really kind of, make a big song and dance about it. Some whiskey companies that make a big shout about it, but for us, you can see non-age statement, no big kind of marketing spiel. It's just Teeling single malt, because what's most important for us is the flavor. The age statement changes. The cask program doesn't change, but the ratio does, if you understand. So you said 5 different wine casks. So you've got sherry, port, Madeira, Cabernet Sauvignon, and white Burgundy. But these all change, So, for example, the white Burgundy, the Chardonnay. So sometimes that can be of an older stock. So the passion fruit and pineapple flavors will be a little bit more pronounced. So to balance that, we use a little bit less Madeira. Madeira has this lovely kind of ginger-like spice to it, and rich, ripe red fruits. So we probably use less of a Madeira, maybe a younger Madeira. Then to balance that, we grab the port. You got your stone fruits, a fortified wine from Portugal, and then sherry. So you can see, the blending process is not simple. And the way we do it, the small batch way we make our whiskies forces us to have to remake it every 18 months. So
this is a blend of the 5, not just it being recast into each individual cask the same liquid. It's
a blend. Yeah, so I think that's another thing that the Scotch whiskey industry has kind of avoided. The negative connotation around the word blend. Most single malts, especially core range single malts, are blends. They are just blends of single malts, and it's a combination of casks, because big companies are choosing from hundreds of casks, and their batches are millions of bottles. Whereas Teeling, it's only about 10,000 bottles. That's why there's dates on them, so you can see the evolution of these products. So the one I've got is from 2019. From my perspective, I think the 2018, 2019 tend to be a little bit more leathery, dark chocolate, and blue cheesy. But I think the newer ones are a lot more vibrant, a lot more peach, pineapple, passion fruit, and pear, if anyone's getting that on this.
So are we going to taste it?
With tasting, so we go back to a little bit of rules and regulations. I'm sure people have already tasted. But if we were doing this in the daytime and people hadn't had pints, which I'm going to assume that people have had pints, and that's totally fine. But if you were doing a whiskey tasting in the day, I would warn that, again, like soup, if you take a sip of whiskey on an empty stomach without having any alcohol that day, it's the same for soup. If you had a spoonful of soup and the soup is too hot, you burn the roof of your mouth, and then that ruins the experience.
Yeah.
The same goes for a whiskey. You grab a whiskey at 46% ABV, at neck it, reflux, burn, and that's all you're going to get for the rest of the glass of that whiskey. It's not a great experience. So you've got to acclimatize your palate. So in the daytime, I usually recommend people just taking a sip and holding it on the palate. So allowing it to sizzle, allowing it to basically shock your taste buds. Your taste buds initially are going to pop and they're going to burn, but it's just a shock. You'd rather it happen on your palate than in your throat. So essentially what you're doing is you're shocking your system, you're acclimatizing your palate, the saliva will start to build up, and the saliva will bring down the ABV. So when you do swallow, you'll still get the flavor components, but it won't be as big a shock to the system. And then, you can see, a perfect example is, your fourth or fifth whiskey of the night is definitely not as sharp as the first, because you've obviously gotten used to drinking a couple of drams. So it's definitely about that acclimatization. Obviously, the water component will bring out hidden flavor notes as well. For those that say whether you should add anything to whiskey, I'm of the opinion that you can do whatever you want to your whiskey, but at a tasting, you definitely want to taste it neat as the blend is intended, but also add a couple of drops of water. That will really open it up. Like I said, those aromas, those 3,000 flavor components can be hid by the heavier alcoholic notes. When you add water, it will brighten them up. Think of like when it rains. So when it rains, you can smell freshly cut grass. So that aroma or that taste is only perceptible to the human palate when it attaches itself to water molecules in the air. So the same goes for whiskey. So when you're tasting whiskey to tasting like this, taste it neat a couple times and then add a couple drops of water. Be sparing with the water. You can always add more, but if you add too much, you can't take it out again unless you chuck it back in a still.
If only we all had a still at home.
What do you guys think?
Fantastic, yeah, absolutely fantastic. I can really smell the melon or tropical, right? Was smelling it, and the taste really is very smooth with a bit of bitter of the like the chocolate as we have here. So, yeah, I can taste like a cinnamon, maybe kind of burn, like after the finish, the last taste.
Yeah, so if you've tried a Madeira Malaga finished single malt, you'll get that cinnamon ginger-like spice. Yeah, very indicative of Madeira whiskies. One of my favorite Teelings is actually that one there. It was an 18-year-old Marsala finish. Marsala, Madeira, Malaga, very similar fortified wines. Really special whiskey. So I love that Madeira influence, and it'll probably be a mainstay moving forward for Teeling whiskey. It's done very well for us. As you know, we actually released an 18-year-old single malt finished in Madeira there as part of the Renaissance series, which we're going to be trying on whiskey number 3, a later iterant of that series. But yeah, I think fortified wines, as you know, there are many different variations. I think we're very much used to port and sherry at this stage, but there's a lot more in the category that we don't think of, like Pinot de Charente, Pommet, and the variation of sweet wines as well, like iced Rieslings, Baume de Venise, things like that.
Yeah, there's a real burst from this, when you try it, just explodes with flavor. Yeah,
it's interesting too. I think, like I said, if anyone has any tasting notes they'd like to share, any questions, feel free. But for me personally, taste is very subjective. Taste is very unique. It's the best thing about tasting notes is you can't be told you're wrong. There are no wrong answers.
We've got James here is going to jump in.
Quick question: the Cabernet. I know you used to use an American Cabernet. Is it still American or is it now French?
We use both. Yeah, we use both. So for the single grain there, that's American. But for the Cabernet component in this whiskey is French. And we've even done a single grain in the French to showcase the variants. So the new 13-year-old. Sorry?
Not the 13-year-old.
Yes, yeah. So that's a great example of the same whiskey being influenced by New World versus Old World red wine. So American versus French.
Yeah.
The French is a lot drier, a lot more tannic, a lot more oaky. So yeah, you're kind of getting a lot of richness and a lot less berries. With the American, you get a little bit more berries. But yeah, the red wine used in this one, the Cabernet Sauvignon used in this one is French. Ooh. So yeah, this is bottled at 46% ABV. So we have bottled whiskeys lower than 46% ABV, but it's purely because age has dictated that we have to bottle it lower than 46%. So the only time we've released a whiskey below 46% is usually a 30, 38, 34-year-old whiskey that dropped below 46 before it got pulled out of the cask, and we needed to reset.
And why have you picked 46? Sorry, what's that?
Rob Brown's already on whiskey number 2.
Yeah. So I mean, why is 46 the mainstay for your whiskeys? That 46% ABV seems to be.
So yeah, good question. So essentially, it's that flavor delivery. We've tasted whiskeys at cask strength on down. We blend our whiskeys at cask strength. So with the addition of water, it comes down. As we know, 40 is the minimum, but 40 is derived from tax. It's not a flavor derivative. It's not even something that was put forward by distillers. It was just taxation. Said everything below this pays this much tax, and everything above this is now a different category, and it pays this much tax. But when the Teeling Whiskey Company was established, we knew we needed to be different. We're not going to compete with the likes of these big market-leading blends. Like if you look at the Irish whiskey category from outside Ireland, like we're very lucky that we get everything that's going on in the Irish whiskey industry on our doorstep. But look at the Irish whiskey category from, say, America, and in a market like Ohio. They love Irish whiskey, but they kind of still look at Irish whiskey as kind of one or two green brands. Your Jameson, your Tullamore Dew, your Bushmills. So for Teeling, we knew we needed to be different, and we're not going to compete with those massive brands by spending money on marketing. We're not going to get in front of them on billboards or television ads or being in movies or anything like that. So we compete on flavor. So it was do everything we can to set ourselves apart. The small batch process, the non-chill filtration, the 46% ABV, the handcrafted, so essentially remaking our whiskeys every 18 months, basically causing our batches to be on the small scale, very hands-on, that human influence. And literally, yeah, I mean, it's proved us very well. We've won over 350 awards for our whiskeys now. Definitely one of the world's most awarded Irish whiskey brands. We won World's Best Single Malt World Whiskey Award. So we hope we're doing something right. But yeah, that's how we compete. That unique point of difference and that focus on flavor. So that's why we kind of lead for 46. And a lot of Scotch brands have followed suit as well. You can see they've all stepped away from 40. A lot of them start non-chill filter. There's been a lot of discussions around flocculation and non-chill filtration and the impact that it has on whiskey and flavor. But for us, I mean, it's a great contributor to mouthfeel, texture, the overall kind of experience of the whiskey, and really important to.
It's great. I mean, like you said, it is a sweet spot for the whiskeys. A lot of whiskey drinkers find that the 40 can be a bit, just doesn't hit it right, and 46 seems to be a sweet spot, and it's great to see whiskeys in this price range, at that high ABV at 46. So.
Of course, yeah, and obviously makes the whiskey that little bit more expensive, but again, obviously quite important to us. But yeah, that's the Teeling single malt anyway. Should we jump in behind Rob there and jump into whiskey number 2?
Yeah, I've seen you coming. You saw it before us, so Rob had gone right ahead. He's nearly on number 4, I think, at this point. No, he's still nursing 2. He said, yeah.
All right. Okay.
So yeah, we're just cleaning the glass with a bit of water just to rinse it.
Yeah. Oh yes. Definitely give your glass a rinse out because these are different styles of whiskey. So yeah, everyone should be quite familiar with single malt. Single malt is obviously single, full stop. Best way to describe it is put that full stop there. So single mix from one distillery. So 100% of the whiskey in the bottle is from one place. And the malt is the ratio of mash bill. So 100% malted barley. And now, luckily, the Irish whiskey industry has been gifted the classification for their own uniquely Irish style whiskey that has a lot of historical significance in Ireland, and that is single pot still Irish whiskey. So you've got single pot still. Sorry about that. Single pot still. So from one distillery, and the combination, and there's a lot of conjecture, a lot of hearsay, because there's a lot of history around pure pot still Irish whiskey. But right now, the European Commission, the geographical indicator for pot still in Ireland is a minimum 30% malted barley and a minimum 30% unmalted barley and a maximum 5% of anything else. So we're really working within the framework that we've been given. If that changes in future, great. But for us, it's really about growing the single pot still category and inviting people into this uniquely Irish style of whiskey. So, really, really exciting. A lot of work to be done. You know, everyone globally knows what a single malt is. They probably even now know what Irish single malt is. But have many people tried single pot still? It's a lot of our jobs to bring that to them in Russia, in Africa, in all these emerging markets, but also the big guys as well. Your France, your Germany, your America. We want to bring them single pot still. How do we do that? Well, this is how we do it. And we have an approachable single pot still that kind of has a nose of familiarity, a definite mouthfeel of a unique point of difference in this category, within this category, and then very, very Teeling-esque. So let's break it down. So
there's no requirement to have any sort of minimum of the other grains. It can be 50-50 or 30-70.
Yeah. So this one is 50% malted barley and 50% unmalted barley. So feel free to start nosing, start tasting, start to build up a little bit as I go through it. But yeah, this one. So it's distilled in Dublin. It was the first whiskey that we released from the Dublin distillery. It's 50% malted barley and 50% unmalted barley. So we could add up to 5% of anything else, but was a focus on the malted versus unmalted. We get those from the Malting House of Ireland, because obviously we're an urban distillery, so we don't have access to farmland and we don't have access to malting houses. So we buy from the same place that Guinness and Heineken buy their malted barley and unmalted barley from. And then we fermented this in Dublin. So as you know, to create alcohol, you need sugar, you need water, and you need yeast. Yeast is very important. For a long period of time, the brewing and distilling industries have used either brewer's yeast, distiller's yeast, or some combination of these kind of chemically engineered yeast that guarantee yield. Yield is profitability. The more conversions of sugars into alcohol, the more profit that you have access to. So what we did, there's basically a lot of flavor in yeast. You know, think of these, kombucha is booming right now. And you've got all these fermented spirits, these low ABV cocktails, things like that. So there's a lot of esters in fermentation. So what is happening in the fermentation process is essentially, think of the yeast. It's a bacteria. It lives in water. It eats sugar, and as a byproduct creates carbon dioxide and alcohol. But it's like pollen. It's a monocellular organism. It doesn't move. It needs a vehicle to take it. Like pollen is transported to flower by bees. Yeast is transported from rotting fruit to rotting fruit by fruit flies. So in order to attract the fruit flies, yeast secretes pheromones that are symbolic of the area in which the yeast strain came from. So if it's an apple orchard, you're going to get apple flavors. If it's a wine vineyard or something like that, you're going to get flavors of the particular grape varietal in that vineyard. So essentially, those flavors can be extracted through the use of natural yeast in the fermentation process, in the wash process. So at Teeling, we use a combination of white wine yeast and distiller's yeast. So we're looking for flavors of passion fruit and pineapple. So going back to Rob's point, yeah, some of those esters are certainly present in this whiskey, bursting with those brighter fruit flavors.
It's quite different, right, from the single malt, just even smelling it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, then became the difficult process, and this will make sense when we talk about whiskey number 4. But we had the difficult process of finding out what casks. We've got the distillate. It's going to be triple distilled in Dublin, fermented with a combination of white wine yeast and distiller's yeast, and it's 50% malted barley and 50% unmalted barley. Great. Now it needs to age for 3 years minimum. Everyone said, batch 1, batch 2, they need more time in cask. Probably. What cask? What cask best exemplifies not only the historical significance of a Dublin-based single pot still, but is unique enough to have the phoenix on the bottle? What is indicative of the Teeling way of kind of separating themselves out? Because I'll tell you what, for Teeling to follow in the footsteps, the well-trod footsteps of Redbreast, Towers John's Lane, and Green Spot, and create a single pot still that's just like those, does us no favors in the wider single pot still category. We want to create something new within the category. Going back to what I was saying about Scotch and single malt earlier, the difference between a Speyside single malt and an Islay single malt. They both say single malt on the bottle, but they are vastly different from a flavor perspective. So one day we would like to see the single pot still category as diverse as the single malt category, but there's a long way to go yet. So it was really about discovering the use of casks, that the wealth of kind of experience that we've had with casks, and discover a range of casks that kind of worked for this particular distillate. And it was a long period of time. We put this distillate into a lot of different casks. For those that have been on some of my virtual tastings, we did the one with single pot stills. We put, just to name a few, there was 5 different alternative wood casks that we put the single pot still distillate into. As you can see on your tasting note, we put it into red wine. We're going to try that today. But for this one, for the commercial release, for this commercially available product at an approachable price point, because again, you release a single pot still in America at £100 a bottle, they're probably not going to reach for it. They're probably going to go, it's a little bit out my price range, and I don't know what single pot still means. But drop it around 50 quid, they might actually pick it up, and they might actually enjoy it, and then they buy a second and a third single pot still, and they start to get really interested. So we knew we needed a good single pot still at that approachable price point that becomes part of our core portfolio. So how do we do that? The cask program, 50% ex-bourbon casks, 25% sherry. As we know, sherry casks, ex-Oloroso casks work very well with the green spiciness of an unmalted barley. And then the real difference for us, and you mentioned it before, guys, was the nose, and that comes from the virgin American oak. So that virgin American oak allows the nose to kind of appear as though it's something common. You know what I mean? Like it has that sense of familiarity. And to the American consumer, they know this and they're like, oh, it's like bourbon, it's like rye. And they think they know what they've got. It's got that vanilla, butterscotch, toffee, but a little bit of spice, a little bit of rye bread, a little bit of muscovado, cooking sugar, but it's the palate that takes them on a 90-degree journey.
And is that a European oak or an American oak? Or what was it?
American oak.
American, yeah?
Yeah, virgin American oak.
Virgin oak can give a really, really big kick.
Yeah.
And that's quite subtle. So was it a light char on the oak, or was it?
Yeah. It's a light char. So we basically brought it in from a cooperage. It's not like the crocodile chars of your Lafroy, something like that. Like, we're not looking for an overbearing level of impact. We're not trying to simulate a 10-year-old whiskey. We're just looking for those vanillins. As you know, the inside of the char, there's a chemical compound when you cook those sugars of the wood. Think of it like a creme brulee. You toast the top of a creme brulee. You're toasting and caramelizing those sugars. The same thing happens to the lignans inside the cask, and a chemical reaction is taking place, releasing a chemical compound called vanillin. Strangely enough, a very close cousin to vanilla. So if you're at a whiskey tasting, a cheat is always say, I taste some vanilla. 9 times out of 10, you're probably right. There might be some vanilla hanging around in a whiskey. Unless maybe it's a fully matured sherry cask or something like that. But,
Yeah.
a couple of cool comments here. Root beer and almond. I like that.
It's great to see people offering their own notes that they get from the whiskies, and for me, I do get a lot of the white fruits, and so it's great to be able to try and root out what someone else finds. So.
Well, I like John's comment because see the cream soda on there. So that was me. So I was like, there's definitely like a cream soda there, and I remember someone in the marketing department was like, is that too esoteric? Because that's the fear. That's the fear. When we're writing tasting notes, they're kind of designed to bring people in. There's kind of the underlying kind of hope that people read that and go, oh, that sounds tasty. I'll buy myself a bottle. Whereas I'm just trying to be factually correct of what I get. But the problem or the fear is that if you write something like, oh, I get a touch of dragon fruit, people are going to look and go, what is dragon fruit? And they're probably going to put the bottle back on the shelf and go, I don't want to eat something that tastes like dragon fruit. So there's a weighing there. You want to those lovely kind of positive tasting notes, but also a mix of something that actually tastes like, for me anyway. So I like the root beer analogy because I get cream soda, and those two products, quite similar. Sarsaparilla root.
You get a lot of the kind of brown sugar, and it's very forward on the palate and dry. It's very drying on the palate. So.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's that astringency coming from unmalted barley. That green barley, a lot of kind of that drying, kind of almost like a cognac or Armagnac-like kind of pulling of the moisture to the sides of your palate. That astringency, that dryness that kind of pulls away. That's definitely something that I find, especially in the spots. I get a lot of that kind of astringency. So a little bit of that there. Definitely like a stewed peach sweetness rather than say straight up kind of caramel or butterscotch. So you got a little bit of that kind of skins, that the tannic quality of a stewed fruit. But yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. I think sherry plays an awfully important role. You've got that Christmas cake spice without being overpowering. It is certainly there, but there's a balance going on. And I think, for those that maybe jumped on the batches, there are still people out there. I'm dead honest with you. There's people out there that have tasted, batch 1 of the Teeling pot still and haven't come back and just went, I know what that is. I don't like it. And the best way to look at it is that, those batches were stories or chapters in a story that will never be told again. We're not about to go backwards and re-release a 3-year-old single pot still. What it was, and it's easy to look back now, what it was is taking people on a journey of what it would become. But at the time, people just went, no, it's too pot still forward, it's too distillate forward, needs more time in cask. Well, now it's had more time in cask, and we're very
How long has this been cast, the current batch, and what batch number is it currently at?
Well, that's the thing, where there's no more batches, and we're still using the first pot still. It's not like batch 1 was equivalent to the first year of malt we use or single pot still we used. Batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, and now this one all came from year 1. So it's just constantly getting older. We're not running out of stock. Like for those that know Teeling, we have more whiskey just from Dublin in the last 4 or 5 years than we ever had to begin with from Cooley. So yeah, there's no shortage of stock, and we will get to that stage where we can have age statement pot still. Not long, but again, it's incongruous to do that because none of our core range have age statements. So yeah, you're looking between 5 years old, but it's not important to us. What's more important is the flavor, the balance.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been huge improvements, throughout the newer batches, and the first batch was 3 years matured, probably. What is it now? What's currently on most shelves?
You're looking between 4 and 5. Yeah, depends on the cask because you've got. So again, it's down to that small batch process. So when you're making the batch, you taste the virgin American oak. If you can get the flavors that you want from a younger cask, yeah, you're going to use it. It's a little bit easier, but if you need to use an older one, you're free to do that. So yeah, it's not all about grabbing the older stock, because we're not of the opinion that older necessarily means better.
Was it a bit of a rush to get the batch one out, or was it part of the process to show where it is at a point in time, and as you say, a part of a story? And
there was no rush. There was no rush whatsoever. I remember, like, yourself, Teeling did not have a shortage of whiskies. We could have held on to it. We weren't making gin. We never needed to make gin. We didn't fall into that trap or anything like that. It was like, I remember Jack saying, "Oh, we're going to bring people on the journey and they can showcase." But I think, we'll be the ones to put our hands up and say maybe we didn't tell that story well enough. I remember standing next to Jack Teeling at Whiskey Live, and it's like a proud father. He's got his kid in his hands and he's showing it to people, and people were coming up. And yourself, the Irish whiskey industry are brutally honest at times. They come up and he's like, "Here's my new baby." They're like, "That's an ugly baby." Like, oh, okay. So yeah, we could have told that story better, but it doesn't matter now, because it's, like I said, they're chapters. They won't be found again. We're not going to go backwards. It's all about the future of the category.
No, and that's great. I mean, what we're trying here tonight is fantastic. So. Yeah, we have a question here.
Yeah. Are you still using the cooling liquid, or is it all double liquid?
Can you hear that, Robert?
I didn't. You might have to.
Yeah. So the question from the floor is: are you still using any coolie liquid, or is it all from? Is it all just your current own distillery?
Yeah. So that's also a good question. So yeah, it is right now is the exciting time when we're well into the integration of a Dublin distillate. So yeah, obviously the Renaissance, they're from the family stock, but the core range, that one. They're all moving towards Dublin. So the single malt we tried today, that will be eventually be replaced by a Dublin distillate. This is the Dublin distillate. The malt component of small batch is a Dublin distillate. The grain whiskey is from Great Northern, but we consider that family stock because a man named John Teeling owns that distillery, and he makes the whiskey exactly how we want it to be made. So that is considered a family product. So we are in the process of an integration. We're releasing single pot still, single casks, as we're going to try later on. So yeah, exciting times. We're not going to cut. We're not going to distance. We're not going to separate. It is about the integration of a Dublin distillate into the wider portfolio. It needs to hold up to everything that we've done in the past. And we think we're doing well. Like Black Pits has been enormously successful for us, and we thought that was going to be a limited release. It just when Germany and America ordered pallets of it, we're like, we better make some more peated malt. So that's now part of the portfolio, which is great to see. It just means we need to reschedule and think ahead of the growth of that.
Yeah, I actually tried the Black Pits during the week, and it's actually really good. Really liked it. Yeah.
I'm so happy because there were, like I said, Irish whiskey fans can be brutally honest. And I remember people, hearing about before we'd even released it, saying this is going to suck. We should be doing peated, leave it to the Scotch. We shouldn't be doing peated single malts. And then those same people, after tasting the whiskey, were like, I don't hate it. It's not that bad. It's not for me, but it's not terrible. I'm like, is that a win? I don't know.
It is if you hear it from an Irish person, yeah. And I mean, Cooley's stock is highly regarded, through the whiskey industry. Do you want to tell us a bit about the story of Cooley and its links with Teeling? And
of course. Yeah, of course. So basically, in the 1970s, after the downfall of Irish whiskey, there were two distilleries in Ireland. There was Middleton and Bushmills, and even Bushmills was being made in Middleton during that kind of period. They were making a bit of whiskey, but there wasn't much going on, and Middleton kind of ran a lot. And then a man by the name of John Teeling, after studying at Harvard Business School and doing his doctorate on the revival of the Irish whiskey category, came back to Ireland and bought a commercial ethanol plant in the Cooley, facility and turned it into the Cooley Whiskey Distillery. After a few short years, he reopened the Kilbeggan Distillery down in Kilbeggan, the oldest continuously licensed distillery in the world, and started to kind of bring back long forgotten brands. Tyrconnell, Kilbeggan, Cooley, things like that. He was kind of working contrary to what Middleton were doing. Middleton had moved into the blended whiskey space. Huge success with Jameson. Jameson, had such a success that it redefined what Irish whiskey was. So yeah, big deal for them. But yeah, I mean, John was making double distilled malt. He was producing whiskey, Irish whiskey, in the Scottish style, and that didn't do with this whole marketing campaign around Jameson, triple distilled, twice as smooth, light, inoffensive, fruity. It didn't bode well. So Middleton tried to buy Cooley a number of times. Due to anti-monopoly laws, they weren't allowed. So John, he kicked along. He did well. He'll be the first to tell you he didn't make a ton of money from the distilleries, but it did allow him to raise his sons around whiskey production. Eventually, his sons, Jack and Stephen Teeling, worked in those distilleries. Jack was the managing director. Stephen was head of sales and marketing, and they hired a young American brewer by the name of Alex Chasko to be the head of innovations. And he worked for a time in Kilbeggan and Cooley with Cashman and Sweeney and Noel Sweeney. And then in 2011, so not long after Jack took the reins, in 2011, Jim Beam came to Ireland. This was just before the Suntory deal. Big American bourbon producer came to Ireland and put forward a very, very good offer. Looking back, we know why. They ended up being bought out by Suntory, who at the time Japanese whiskey was buying Irish and Scottish whiskey and maturing it in Japan and calling that Japanese whiskey. So productional processes from America and Ireland made Jim Beam an international whiskey company rather than an American whiskey company. So they're very lucrative. They weren't really interested in the stocks that Cooley held. So Jack obviously wanted to follow, just getting into the whiskey industry, said, all right, I will buy whiskey rather than taking my money and sitting on a beach. So essentially in the sale of the Cooley Distillery, John Teeling bought the old Hart Brewery in Dundalk and turned it into the Great Northern Distillery. And Jack and Stephen Teeling robbed Alex Chasko and created the Teeling Whiskey Company, taking tens of thousands of maturing stock with them, moved it a mile down the road to an old Coca-Cola bottling facility. So our maturation warehouse is a stone throw away from the Cooley Distillery, only because it was close and they had very short time to do this deal. There was a few warehouses of stock up there that the lads bought up, and then began the search for what they had on their hands. It wasn't about picking and choosing; they just took it all. And there was some hidden gems in there, as we know, the 24, the 30, the 33, the 38 now. So there was some real gems in there. But it was begin brand building. They created the Teeling Whiskey Company the year after that sale, and then 3 short years after that, we opened the Newmarket Distillery in the middle of Dublin, the first new distillery in Dublin in 125 years. So that's a brief overview of the history of Teeling family. Anyway.
Yeah.
I just have one question of my own there. So what would be the major aspect or component of the philosophy of Teeling making whiskey, and what would it differ to other major distilleries?
Yeah, of course. And I'm gonna kind of bring in John's question here about the Teeling DNA, because those two things really fit together. A lot of brands basically have that flavor DNA. Underlying, no matter what weird and wonderful whiskey they come up with, the kind of rationale is that they still want it to taste like that product. But we're not like that. We're not just a peated single malt producer, or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I put forward this line to Alex. I don't think he liked it, But I said our flavor DNA is fluid, meaning that obviously it's fluid, but it also changes. It's really about discovery of new flavors, not like these are great examples. These ones here, the collaborations that we do, they're great examples of unique, interesting products. But not only are we creating these unique, interesting products, but we're also learning what these casks are doing to our whiskey. So a quick overview, these collabs are small batch. So for all intents and purposes, these are the same whiskey. The only difference between them is the finishing cask. Now,
Stout cask.
Yeah.
Is that a stout cask?
It is the stout cask. Yeah, it is.
That's good.
Yeah. And do you think you're going to do another collaboration with a stout company other than Galway for a second?
Yeah. We've done some with Lithuania. We've done one in Singapore called the Heart of Darkness. We've done one with Dot Brew. It's a dark porter. Galway Bay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of beer companies in the world that like using whiskey casks, and we've got some whiskey casks. So yeah, we'll give them the casks.
You've got to try the Treaty Brewery here in Limerick. They've got some great casks.
There you go. Nice work. So yeah, they're great examples of showcasing, how we learn. So I think of it like a chef. A chef needs to know what everything tastes like, so he can use them in interesting ways. So that's what we're doing, is we're creating these interesting whiskies now, but in 10 years, when we start doing, say, an Irish rye, we go to the effort of distilling it. We get an interesting yeast strain that works with it. We double distill some and we triple distill the other. And then we go to all that effort. At Teeling, we like to know, we like to think we know where to go to find the flavors that will work with that distillate. Because we've used up to 150 different casks, you make the distillate, you taste it off the stills, and you're like, oh, that's got a lovely kind of pineapple passion fruit flavor to it, or apricot and fucking something else weird. What could benefit from that? So you go, oh, you know what would work with that? The Sauterne, or the Muscat, or Malaga we talked about earlier. So it is really about knowing where to go when you're missing a certain something. It's not just about lash it in bourbon, wait 10 years and go, okay, how do we make it a bit better?
And
it's about learning.
Just on that, I mean, going back to John's comment there about Teeling DNA.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at the Teeling aren't afraid to try out things. All the different types of casks they're putting out there and we're throwing whiskies in. And I mean, again, last year Teeling produced the most new releases throughout the year than any other distillery in Ireland. So I mean, it just shows that Teeling are innovative. They're not afraid to go and try new things, and maybe that's part of the DNA.
You're dead right. You're dead right. We did do a lot of different whiskies, and that can be a good thing, and it can be a bad thing. And we have a yearly new product development meeting with the team. Jack and Stephen, great owners. They will listen to everybody. They'll say, okay, how are we doing out there in the market? What are people saying? And they'll listen to us and give feedback. And some of our ideas have made it into whiskies, which I absolutely adore. That my small role is having impact on the Irish whiskey industry for years to come. But yeah, I said it to Jack there just last year. We've got a lot of different whiskies, and for the average consumer, it can be confusing. Now we kind of know where we're coming from it, because they all kind of stem from these guys. You've got two different types of single malts there, in peated and unpeated. You've got the single grain category. You've got the single pot still category, and then you've got these interesting blends, but they're not too dissimilar. So when you talk about the collab series, the distillery exclusive series, and the sommelier select series that Teeling have done, in those series, you probably have about 45 whiskies. Each one of them is that same pre-rum small batch blend. So they make a phenomenal comparative tasting, because you can tell the story about how that minimal 6-month finishing process can have a dramatic amount of impact
Yeah.
on the finished product. So it does showcase the variation on our core blend. So in that case, for our blended whiskey, the flavor DNA is the small batch. For our pot still, there's a whole period of discovery. We're going to taste one of those today, but it is about discovery. We've got a lot of work to be doing.
We've got we've just got another question from the floor here. So
oh, sorry. Okay.
Is there any sign of any cask that Doc have used going back to Teeling's, or will they be used again by Teeling's for future?
specifically with Dot or just in general? Yeah, I mean, just the query is, just using Dot Brewery as an example. You know, they're close to you guys. They're in Teeling. You've used their cask for maturing some of the whiskey. You know, has there been a reciprocation where those casks have been given back and been used? We've seen it here in I think locally here in Treaty, where they've done this as well, where whiskey aged or casks used to age whiskey have been reused for aging beers and yeah. Okay, just the reuse and recirculation of casks that once they've been used. In the brewery side and back to the distillery, you know, does that 100%. Happen? Are you working on that?
Yeah, 100%. There is 100% a symbiotic relationship. We're lucky in that, we work with some fantastic breweries that are as innovative as us. So Shane at Dot Brew loves to create different weird and wonderful beers. He's done a whole range, I'd say about 6 different beers just from our casks alone, and we're not the only company he's working with. So yeah, we love to do that. We love to give him a cask. He ages a beer in it. It comes back to us. We age a whiskey in it. It goes back to him. It's really about how long the cask will last. It's not just a box ticking exercise of going, that's the porter, that's the red ale, this is an IPA. It's really about that symbiotic relationship and how the casks evolve. Now, sometimes the casks are too old to use, so they get painted and sold. But yeah, we've done a lot. He's done a ton of different beers, and we'll continue to work with him. We have a dark porter, as I said, coming out later this year from him, so that should be lovely, chocolatey, and a great comparative to this one we were talking about with the Galway base out. You know, obviously 200 Fathoms, hugely successful beer in its own right. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see a different type of that porter style impact on Teeling whiskey and taste them side by side. So excited to see that one launch. But yeah, 100%. There's a symbiotic relationship. We have another one coming out soon. I was actually in London there. I was talking to the lads today. So I went over to meet with Umbrella. Umbrella is a ginger beer company based out of the Sun Tavern in Bethnal Green in East London. We sent them casks. They aged ginger beer in it. They sent it back to us. We did the Teeling ginger beer cask finish. We sent the casks back to them. They did ginger beer in them. And then they're coming back to us now. And we're going to release the whiskey, hopefully soon, another variation of the Teeling ginger beer finish. So that's also in the pipeline. I think you guys are getting the advantage of me. I'm telling you everything that's coming later this year. I'm going to get in trouble.
I mean, generally, how long will a cask last?
How long's a piece of string? You know, if you treat them well, they can last 50 years. If you don't, they can fall apart in you. And you know, you've got to fix them. You've got to constantly trying to, work on it.
I mean, not every cask is good. I mean, you got to do a cask selection. And when some casks, you might buy them and they go straight to the bin, right?
Yeah, you can watch whiskey dripping out of them, like, and then you've got thirsty wood too. Like, you know, you buy a cask, you put whiskey in, you think it's going to be grand, you open it up, all the whiskey's gone, and you haven't spilled it. There's no hole in it. The whiskey's just drunk it all. You're like, oh, great.
Angels are thirsty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Should we jump on to whiskey number 3?
Yeah, let's do that for sure.
All right, so whiskey number 3 is Renaissance Series 4.
I mean, Renaissance. I mean, where does Renaissance fit in? Is it, I mean, to do with the resurgence of in Irish whiskey in general? The name, where does it come from, and how does that differ from the Revival series?
So yeah, it grew from the Revival series. So if you look back at the Revival series, for the whiskey collectors out there that may still have some of those bottles, the Revival series was never intended to be a series. If you got Revival 1 in your collection, look closely at the bottle. It doesn't say Revival number 1. It just says Revival, because that component was originally going to be a part of this product. There was originally going to be a rum component in the single malt. Sorry, it just didn't play well with those wine flavors. So what the lads did was they took a series of the rum casks, all 15 years and older, and created a whiskey called the Revival. And that was symbolic of the revival of the Irish whiskey category. And it did remarkably well. It was a 15-year-old, fully matured rum-aged single malt, and it flew off the shelves. So, all right, we've got something here. So it began a series. And it was really about, all right, what do you follow it up with? So number 2 was Calvados. Number 3 was Pinot de Charente. Number 4 was Muscat. Number 5, Cognac. And we started to figure out what the series was. The series is age statement single malts being influenced by a little bit rarer of those wine casks. So yeah, there are port and sherry influenced single malts in the Teeling portfolio, but that's the Brabazon series. The Renaissance series is the little bit rarer. So essentially the Renaissance, we believe the revival of Irish whiskey category is already been and gone. We're now in the Renaissance period. So what we did is grab older single malts and we focus on the weird and the wonderful. So Renaissance 1 was an 18-year-old single malt finished in Madeira. Renaissance 2, 18-year-old single malt finished in Australian Shiraz. Number 3, 18-year-old single malt finished in Muscat. Again, we love a good Muscat, love a good dessert wine. But the one we're trying tonight, 18-year-old single malt finished in Pinot de Charente. Excuse me. Pinot de Charente is a weird one in that, for those that don't understand what Pinot de Charente is, it's a fabulous aged wine product that is just grape juice that has been fortified with a grape-based distillate. So a fortified wine is you take a wine, you put some cognac in, that's fortified wine. You're bringing up the ABV with a grape-based distillate. Pinot de Charente is essentially taking the grape must that has not yet been fermented. It's non-alcoholic grape juice, grape desiccant. And then they add cognac to that and create this fortified must or fortified grape juice. They do it in white and red grapes, and they age that in casks, and it's served as a table wine. Really, really special. You can buy some in Dublin. I think there's one in Piglet down in Essex Street West there. They have a fantastic Pinot de Charente. But yeah, hugely
I have one
underrated.
as well.
Sorry?
I have one as well.
There you go. There you go.
It's a fortified Bordeaux.
Yeah, hugely underrated category, because you've got this lovely tannic quality of a French red wine, but you've also got this funk of like an Amontillado sherry. You know, there's that raw kind of fermentation, kind of dunder of the sherry, like a brighter sherry, and then the deeper, darker tannins, and then you've got wood notes, being an 18-year-old single malt. You know, 18 years in ex-bourbon and then 18 months in Pinot de Charente. It's a lovely balance of rich, tannic funk, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's true. And 18 months in finishing in a cask, I mean,
at least
more or less than usual. I mean, it seems a little bit more than you often find for a finishing cask, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. Like we don't think about it like, oh, it's got to be a year. Like, what is a finishing? Like, again, what's the question? You know, how long is a finishing? You know, because we've finished something for 7 years. At what point does it stop being a finish? And then how do you do a reverse finish? You know, we've thought about doing 2 months at the start of maturation in gin, and then take that for 10 years in ex-bourbon. What do you call that? Is that a gin maturation and a 10-year-long bourbon finish. So yeah, it is a bit longer than you would expect, but again, it's interesting, really.
It's not a marketing ploy, that one. It's not like 2 weeks in the cask and then put onto the bottle.
No, it's, of course you want that impact. Like again, we're not trying to stick to a flavor DNA. Like I said earlier, we really want that impact to be shown. You could taste those whiskeys, those Renaissance. You can taste them side by side, blind, and I would put it to the best of us that maybe you're going to not guess they're all the same series or even the same brand, because we really go far down the rabbit hole of these influences.
That's one of the most unusual casts that you've done. Is there anything else coming out that we should know about? Because I know
Man, you guys are tapping me for secrets here. So I will say the revival series, the Renaissance series will come to an end. There's one more that is due out next month. That is Calvados.
Oh yeah.
But we do have plans for a new series next year that will be a higher age statement, and that's all I'm saying.
Will they be behind the counter at Whiskey Live?
Maybe. We've got a lot on the plate this year for stuff. So I think we've got 8 whiskeys lined up for this year. So you'll probably see some of those at Whiskey Live.
If last year was anything to go by, I mean,
you
set your standards high.
Is it all them collaborations with other, or are they?
Yeah. Like I've already mentioned 2, and I know of 3 more.
Okay, wow, exciting.
Come on, we'll tease those out.
Yeah,
Give us some more.
exciting.
Does anyone remember so I'll give you one more because I just want to be close to my heart. But do you remember the one that just disappeared? It was so successful. The pineapple rum finish.
Stiggins, is it? Or yeah.
So we'd be stupid not to do another one of them.
That was so good. Yeah, a lot of people still look for that. I've got 2 at home, and one I've drank. So
put it up and
I know. They'll be drank.
Because those guys, so those plantation guys, this was another reason I was just in London. They just launched their new product. It's Stiggins finished in Black Pits casks.
Oh, go away! Oh, wow.
So they've got a pineapple rum finished in Black Pits cask.
So it's a semi-peated rum, is it?
yeah, so good.
Wow. Okay. Any questions from the floor here, or at home?
I like Patrick's question. What's the story with the Renaissance bottle cork? It's a weapon.
Oh yeah, show us that.
Yeah.
I mean, like these whiskeys, it's about the experience. It's about the occasion. If you're going to spend 140 quid on a bottle of whiskey and share it with friends, you want to hear, and you want to pull out the box. Like I don't have the Renaissance with me, but you want to open up the box and show your mates, look, this is a special occasion, lads. Let's dig in. You want a sense of occasion with a premium single malt, and we definitely feel like we do a great job with our packaging. Again, a lot of people gift whiskey, and what makes a better gift than a box of Renaissance?
Absolutely,
yeah. Steve's very good at his design. He really, from day one when he first brought out the first bottle, it stood out amongst the shelves, definitely.
And I mean, price-wise, what are these? 140. It's pretty good for an 18-year-old, minimum 18-year-old whiskey, So.
Oh yeah. There's still people like in the Scotch industry that still can't wrap their heads around the rarity of Irish whiskey, because they're still kind of putting it in similar terms. Like, oh, I can get an 18-year-old Scotch for 50 quid, but I'm paying 140 for an 18-year-old Irish. I don't get it. It's rarity. No one was making that much Irish whiskey 18 years ago. We will eventually, but again, an older whiskey isn't inherently better. It's purely rarity. I've had 6-year-old whiskeys that blow 12, 16-year-old whiskeys out of the water, but it's usually made by someone that knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stock coming from, the Great Northern product that's coming out there, even the younger products, the spectacular flavor structure.
Mm.
They really are big flavors. I mean, we've tried them with the Thomegate whiskies. I know, there is a great relationship between the dad and the sons, but there's some seriously good whiskies coming out. And it doesn't have to be an 18-year-old to give you good quality.
No, not at all. Like literally, I think we're looking into a future where there's so much play within the mash bills, so much play in fermentation. There's combination of distillations, and it's no longer as simple as double versus triple. I bought a Mortlock single malt there the other day, a 16-year-old Mortlock Distillery Select, and they're calling it 2.81 distilled. Now, I need to do my research. I only just bought the bottle. I haven't looked at it yet, but I want to know what they mean. Are they saying that their triple still, their third still has a rectifier and column on it? Like, what are they saying here? Is it a marketing thing, or are they actually trying to, I don't know. So I need to do that. But yeah, it's interesting to see that Scotch are kind of playing around with this white line between just double or triple.
Yeah.
And just a
question here from Paul at home.
Yes.
Just the collaboration with the Australian vineyard, Jim
Yeah,
Barry.
so-
I'm not sure which one that was. You can give us more info.
Shiraz.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any plan to do a second one, and you can read
So
it.
that's an interesting one. That's a great question. So the collaboration that we did with Jim Barry and the Renaissance are two separate things, but they both came from Jim Barry wines. So the Jim Barry, the 17-year-old single malt collab that we did for Australia, it was in this bottle. It said Jim Barry release, and it was a 17-year-old. That was the Armagh Shiraz. That was your typical Australian Shiraz in a French oak barrel, uncharred. Whereas the Australian Shiraz in this one that doesn't have Jim Barry's logo on was from the Jim Barry. It wasn't the Armagh. It was a Shiraz of theirs that had been aged in virgin charred American oak casks. So it was a red wine in American charred oak. So really interesting and different. So if you do have both of those, again, it showcases the variation. Because again, most people just look and see the word Shiraz. Well, some people see Australian Shiraz. But if you dig a little deeper, there's difference between Australian Shiraz from the same vineyard. You've got Australian Shiraz in French oak versus Australian Shiraz from the same vineyard in these charred American oak casks, and both of them remarkably different, and both of them have remarkably different impacts on Irish single malt. So yeah, I mean, we've barely scratched the surface on the future of flavor within Irish whiskey. It's not just as simple as that one's a wine cask, that one's a rum cask, that one's tequila cask. There's so much more variation than that.
And before you skirt away from his second question, can you hook him up with a bottle of this 2016 Armagh? We'll see what we can do, Paul. We'll get you his number. You can hound him on WhatsApp. Another question here, actually. Yeah.
As Teeling are big enough now, any chance that they could do a bottle similar to the competition down south?
Which one down south?
Oh, the Cask series. Oh,
The Barra Club type thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Middleton have recently started a Barra Club, their own club of their own releases. You know, they've a lot of releases to work with, as does Teeling. So, and you've got the tribe going, the Teeling tribe on Facebook, and a club, you know, which is a non-paying club. But it's great for people to be able to club together and share their experiences with the Teeling brand and their whiskies. So, is that something you might consider down the line to try and expand it just from the club as it is and make it unique, where there's an offering, you know, of releases coming out or tastings or, you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be one to put my hand up and say, when we created the Teeling tribe, I was like, I mean, you could charge money for this. And obviously this was at a time when everyone was hurting. Start of COVID, I was shit scared of my job. I thought I would lose my job. Who needs a brand ambassador that can't travel? Luckily, this happened. But yeah, I mean, I was like, oh, you could turn this into a subscription service. You could turn it into a paid membership where the members get X and Y and stuff like that. But Jack was like, I just want it to be a community where everyone shares opinions. We'll occasionally put bits in and give them little insights, but it is just Jack's like baby. He's like, no. I just want to be talking about Teeling. Get a sense, like literally, like I said, we do the MPD meeting where Jack listens to us. Jack and Stephen listen to us talk about Teeling. He's not just listening to us; he's listening to the audience. Like the Wonders of Wood tasting that we did, where Alex, Ian, and I tasted the Wonders of Wood, and then the winner of the one that everyone voted the best flavor, that became a product. That was interaction from the audience, the interaction from our fans. I mean, what better way to sell your whiskey than talk to the people to buy it and go, what did you like best? So yeah, again, if you add a commercial element to it, it can be a little bit scary, and it becomes a commercial product rather than just let's talk about whiskey and make a better product.
Did you change your rum over the last few years?
Funny you say that. And again, you're only getting an honest answer because I'm a few whiskeys deep. But as you know, our major US distributor is Bacardi.
Yeah.
And they, funnily enough, make rum. So they were like, why do you want to use our rum casks? I was like, well, can we have some of your rum casks? And again, to my point that I was trying to make with the Australian Shiraz, not all rums are the same. Yeah. So we made a ton of different rum influences, but we made one with the Bacardi barrels, and it's amazing, but it's not small batch. So yeah, no, we haven't changed our rum casks for small batch, but we will probably use Bacardi casks in the future for something different.
Okay.
Because it's surprising. They're both, again, on a label, they're both Central American rums, but it just didn't have the rum raisin vanilla we were looking for. Instead, it had a little bit more golden treacle and earthiness. So it became something totally unique and different. And funnily enough, yeah, Alex just sent a bottle back to Bacardi to see what they think. So hopefully, something will come of that.
It was one of the issues that we had with the small batch when Bacardi became involved with you guys. It's like people going, oh, they've changed it. The small batch is no longer what it was. And I'm trying to
you might have noticed that we don't really mention the brand anymore. That's what's changed.
Yeah.
We used to, but even then, like the rum barrels come from a cask wholesaler, and even the logos have been stripped off the side. So we can't be 100% certain anymore either.
What's the best Irish whiskey outside of Teeling that he's tried from last year?
I'm sure you can hear that, but what's the best Irish whiskey that you've tried in the last year?
Outside of Teeling.
Outside of Teeling specifically, okay, yeah. You're not allowed to mention Teeling. It's not a Teeling tasting.
That's hard.
You're allowed to for people who are doing well.
Yeah.
It's, that's the reason that, according to the newspapers, we're going to overtake Scotch next year. And he's going to overtake Scotch in sales in America.
Maybe Cologne.
Yeah.
The Cologne. There's some banging Colognes up there.
Doing great stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
The rum cask, yeah.
And I mean, just mentioned on the floor here was the Stone Soup. I mean, we're seeing a great resurgence of poachine. Is there plans with Teeling to do anything along those lines with new make or poachine or put something on the market like that?
Again, it's almost similar to the gin discussion. It takes our full team to create whiskies. If we wanted to make poachine or gin, they are very broad categories, full of producers that know 100% what they're doing. So for us to produce a gin or a pot sheen, it would divert the talent, or we'd have to rehire or bring people in. We don't want to do that. We have a pot sheen, but it's called the Spirit of Dublin, and it's more indicative of an unaged pot still than it is pot sheen, and it's very vibrant category. You know, there are people making pot sheen
made with potatoes and
in the mountains and bathtubs and
okay.
with Brendan basically squashing them. Yeah.
So how big is a team of Teelings? Like, as you were saying about, like,
not big. People think we're this massive marketing juggernaut, and we've just had some luck. Like, it's Jack, Stephen, 3 marketing people, including me. There's not a big team. Alex's team is probably the biggest. He's got 6 distillers and 3 up in the warehouse. It is a small team. Sales, there's three domestic sales team. There's me and James and Chris on the brand ambassador team. There's more tour guides than any other department. There's 3 in finance. There's 2 in logistics. That's pretty much it.
I mean, the tour is great. It's a tour I've done. I've done a couple of tours, and I mean, you're in the working distillery. The smells you're smelling are, you know, it's actually what's happening. It's the process that's going on, and
actually,
you're in amongst it. You walk in through what's happening, so it's really good.
That's one thing I can offer you, actually. If any in the club want to do a free tour on me,
really,
you guys reach out to me. Tommy has my details. So yeah, if anyone wants to do a free tour from Treaty,
We'll be happy to have that. Yeah.
but I don't want
exactly. One for everybody in the audience. Well done, Robert.
I don't want 50 separate emails. Just
No, it'll be routed through us. I mean, hopefully we'll organize a tour to you at some point as well. So it'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, if you want to do it as a society, even better. We'll give you the spare. We'll give you the private room, and we'll bring out some of the sneaky hidden stuff that I'm not supposed to.
And just to add on another question that I just thought of there, you know, because, you know, like, Teeling Distillery is so new and like brand spanking compared to other distilleries that are out there, kind of thing. Like, how can you see, like, the goal of whiskey is to kind of advance maturity as much as you can, and maybe sometimes some smaller distilleries want to get out as quick as they can, like, to sell. So do you think with the innovation with technology, there could be a future to, like, maybe like upgrade and get whiskey out quicker, kind of thing? Like, is there? You mean like
the ultrasound aging and
yeah, because there's a lot of kind of work going on in Japan, kind of that side of stuff.
Yeah, there was so I was in Los Angeles a few years back, and I wanted to visit the Lost Distillery. They do the ultrasound aging, and then you saw recently that your man from
California.
A country, he was the guy that does the wood chips in the barrels. He wanted to come over and create Irish whiskey, and the government turned him down, thankfully. I don't know. Like, I'm of the opinion, and again, I got caught up in it. Being a bartender, I got caught up in the science of it. I went to Lost Distillery and had a look, and I asked Alex about it. I've even had that glyph. It's molecularly engineered whiskey that doesn't contain whiskey. Check it out. It's just glyph whiskey. I bought a bottle, brought it back for Alex. Really weird, but yeah, basically they broke down the chemical compounds of whiskey and replaced it naturally. You know, like they do for mother's milk with plants from the Amazon. Same thing. It just didn't have. It was too smooth. It tasted like a sugarless whiskey liqueur, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's too much nuance. There's too much human interaction. There's too many faults that are present in whiskey to make it whiskey. You know, it's a romance.
It's probably a lot less controllable as well. You know, you're speeding it up, you're speeding up everything. You know, when do you jump in? And you know, when it's extended over time, it's like you're slowly going through this, and you know, you're nosing, and you're slowly figuring out when is the right time. But it's
exactly that's a beautiful point. And yeah, you're dead right. So if you can fast forward a whiskey to 40 years old, great. What if that whiskey was at 36 years and 4.5 months? You would never know because you're straight past it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The
the
answer is-
romance of the whiskey industry is the waiting.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The Teeling buses.
Oh God! Right, should we jump on?
We've got it. Hang on, Robert. We've got a question here. Sorry. Yeah, question on the raw materials.
Just there's 165 million bottles that come from Ireland in 2019, and I'm very concerned about the supply of raw material in the first place because there's an explosion in distilleries, but obviously what's feeding those is a limited supply of grain, and this are planning to actually support, the growth of grain
Okay.
in the country.
Yeah, I mean, what's the support of the raw products that are going into making whiskey? There's been an explosion in purchasing of whiskey and how it's bought throughout the world, really, and we're seeing that. And is there plans in place to support what needs to be there to produce the amount of whiskey that people want to buy?
On demand, yeah.
Yeah, the demand of it. Is the supply of the raw materials sufficient enough for the demand that's there?
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing it with the likes of Waterford and places like that. There's a symbiotic relationship with farmers. The thing that we need to take into consideration is the growth of the whiskey industry has been so dramatic. We didn't expect it. No one saw what would happen. No one saw that Irish whiskey would go like that. They're like, oh, maybe it'll get a bit popular and we'll see a bit of a return to form. But sales has just exploded. So to keep up with demand, the Malting House of Ireland and farmers and stuff like that are seeing the value. They're seeing, they can tie in these contracts. Like literally a farmer right now, if they have the land, could say, all right, well, I'll plant barley and I can go to a distiller and say, I'll provide you this for this, and almost pre-sell the malt before it even gets seeded. So there is that much demand, but it's about, again, agriculture and time. But yeah, there is certainly development. Board Beer's on board. Every distillery in Ireland needs to abide by the Origin Green program and be more sustainable. So it's having less of an impact on Earth. The whiskey industry is not going anywhere, but it is really about being more sustainable and giving back a little bit. It's something that's important to us. With our charitable work and winning world's most sustainable Irish distillery. It's just something that has to be taken into consideration because, again, like Irish whiskey is growing so fast. If we don't give back, it'll die. It'll burst. The bubble will burst, and we'll see whiskey distilleries falling off, and it'll just kind of plateau.
Same with Japan can't keep up with demand at the moment, so we might have a problem in the future.
And they've become a lot more selective in what they're exporting, and
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like this, I mean, we tell people, like, obviously, again, we don't shout about it, but the malt from this is from Scotland because the Malting House of Ireland also produce malt for Guinness and Heineken. They don't want to peat a malt because, as you know, those peated flavors will hang around even after you've stopped peated malt. So the chances of them doing a run on the level of Guinness and maybe some peat flavor ending up in there is not worth the risk. So yeah, we have to go to Scotland.
No, I mean the Japanese stuff. I mean, we haven't. I don't think we've seen a Mizunara cask from Teeling, have we? Is there one in the pipeline, or is that something that is sitting in a warehouse, or
So if anyone did our Wonders of Wood tasting on the Teeling tribe, they've tasted it. So that's the thing. So do you remember the Amberana cask, the cherry wood that were really popular from the Wonders of Wood started last year? So what happened was we tasted 5 whiskies. There was Portuguese oak, Mizunara, cherry, acacia, Amberana, and cherry wood. And we said, literally, you tell us which one's best. And Alex and I said to one another, you watch. The minute we tell people it's a Mizunara, they're going to want a Mizunara because of the resellability of a Mizunara cask. But this is a testament to our fans. They didn't pick it just because it said Mizunara. They let the flavors of the whiskey, because I'll be dead honest with everybody, and I'll put my hand up and say I was wrong. I did not expect the Amburana cask to win because I thought it was too weird. I loved it, but it tastes like liquid carrot cake. It doesn't even taste like whiskey as we know it. They're gonna hate it. Wrong. I was wrong. People loved it. It sold out in a week. We can't keep up. Like the US won it, Germany won it. Everyone wants Amburana cask now. We're like, oh, let's go to Brazil. So yeah, I mean, I'll happily put my hand up and say I was wrong there. Yeah, we had a Mizunara cask. You just didn't want it.
And
I want it.
I take it you still have it.
We do. Yeah, we do.
That's fine. Okay.
They're expensive. You know, the reason that those Mizunara casks, like my girlfriend works with Glendalough, so I've tasted the Glendalough Mizunara, and those casks are expensive. To give you an example, your ex-bourbon cask costs about 80 quid. So obviously there's a lot of them, and they're the cheapest. And then you've got your 200s, your 300s. Mizunara casks can cost between $3,000 and $5,000 one barrel.
Wow.
And they are thirsty. They are thirsty barrels.
Yeah.
You know, the whiskey will soak right through the inside of the cask to the outside of the cask.
we got a question. Sorry.
Just this one first. I mean, just regarding farmers and that, you know, why do you use a spring barley versus a winter barley? What's the reason for? Do you know?
I that's again. I'm not even going to make up an answer. I'm not 100% sure. That's an Alex question. You know, that'd be
We
an
need
Alex
next time. So yeah.
and his brewing background. But we get in like samples of malts, so rye, oats. We get samples in, and basically in the lab, there's homebrew setups, and Alex will homebrew these beers with these different grain varietals and make a beer and drink the beer and go, oh, okay, they're the flavors I want. So, I mean, that, again, well above my pay grade there, but Alex and his brewing background, like he's basically making craft beer in there and then distilling that. So, again, it's down to his experience as a beer brewer, an American beer brewer.
Yeah. Just another question there. With you know how you're talking about the 3 to 4 or 5 grand barrel, the cask we were talking about. How many times would that barrel be reused, or would it be the same? Yeah.
So the one that we have still has the same whiskey in it. We bought it maybe 3 years ago, and it probably still has the same whiskey in. It just depends on when that whiskey gets emptied, what condition it is in.
Yeah.
So again, that's another kind of thing you need to take into consideration. Do you put a young whiskey in, and that way, if it falls apart, or if your angels drink it all, you know, not so much of a risk? Or do you chuck a 21-year-old in there, throw the dice, and maybe ruin everything?
Yeah.
So,
a commercial decision has to be made at some point as to when you're losing so much versus when it has to be sold to try and get some retail back from it.
well, that's the thing. Like people sometimes ask the question, do you guys ever make any mistakes in the maturation process? And I asked Alex this. I said, Alex, someone asked me the question, do you ever make any mistakes? And he said, nah. I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll tell you what. He said, this is what happens. No distiller ever says to himself, I can't wait to profit off this whiskey in 40 years' time.
Yeah.
They make a whiskey and they distill it.
Yeah.
And they age it. And someone tastes it after 3. It's not ready yet. It's whiskey, but it's not ready yet. They taste it after 4 and 5 and 6 and 12. And what happens is it's never really ready. So it keeps getting pushed to the back of the warehouse, And at some point in the future, someone else comes along, probably a man that worked after the guy that distilled it. He tastes it and says, this is banging, or this is not banging, but we need to release it, put it in a crystal decanter, put it in the airport, say limited edition.
Yeah. We've got another question from the floor here.
You mentioned they have any intention
Are you going to go terroir?
We've seen it with some other distilleries, you know, in the southeast.
Oh, the terroir and biodynamics. Whether you believe in them or not.
It's not a case of believing. Like, I mean, again, there's a lot of flavor impacts. No one's talking about, you know, yeast strains. No one's talking about different mash bills or things like that. So there's a lot to take into consideration when it comes to impact from flavor. So I'm not going to about to say from an uneducated point of view whether someone's right or wrong. But for us specifically at Teeling, we are an urban distillery. There are buildings bigger than us all around us now. The construction in the city centre has not stopped through COVID. So even if we wanted to plant a field and grow our own barley, it's probably not something that we could do there. So we need to go outside, and then it becomes incongruous with what we do in the liberties. So never say never, but we're focused on the liberties. And
obviously, I mean, Waterford have done that in collaboration with local farmers and made that part of their whole core offering. There's still things like that can be done from within the city. So in Dublin,
of course it could. But should we do that? The first thing that's going to be said is, "Oh, look, Teeling's doing a Waterford." You're like, "Why? We're doing good."
I think for you guys, it's access to quality product first.
Yeah.
And ensuring that you're getting the proper malt, ensuring you have the quality there, and not producing something which you won't suit your brand.
Oh, of course, yeah. Flavor is 100% the most important thing to us. And like I said, Alex will always be searching for weird and wonderful grains. Like I said, we're constantly getting sent samples. And we've done really cool things with grains. One of the most exciting things that I'm personally looking forward to is Crystal Rye.
Yeah.
Alex did a Crystal Rye there. Every time I go to the warehouse, I'm like, I'm going over there.
I did the run-of-the-mill tasting you did, and it was the best standout for me. It was fantastic,
When Alex said to me, "What do you want to do for the run-of-the-mill?" I was like, "Crystal Rye." It's like, "Yeah, okay, what else?" I'm like, "Crystal Rye." It's like, no, but what else? Crystal Rye.
Don't use up all the stock. Just to go back to the barrels. You've got the Scottish guys who will reuse a barrel 10, 12 more times. You can go over there and it's quality. Middleton, they claim they only use it 4 times. Would you guys be the same? You don't want to exhaust a barrel. You won't use a product with a barrel which is not there anymore.
Essentially depends on the barrel. So for an ex-bourbon barrel, so if we get a good quality ex-bourbon barrel, it comes over to us and it's an AB0. For those that don't know the terminology, American bourbon has been in it once, and Irish whiskey has been in it 0 times.
Oh.
The most we've used a cask at Teeling, we used an AB4, so it had American whiskey once and Irish whiskey 4 times. It was more than likely small batch, so it's only really in 4 years of time. And then what we did was after the 4th time, it was still in good condition, so we sent it back up to a cooperage. They scraped out the insides, recharred it, and that's what's called an ABX. That is the most we've ever gone. So taking it an AB3 or an AB4, recharring, and then that's pretty much it. After you use it as an ABX, that's probably the last time.
And just
you say that now.
That's it. Just someone's comment.
one last question there before we move on to the Renaissance, because everyone's probably dying to taste it. Why did you? Oh, sorry. Why did you name the series Renaissance?
Basically it was a follow-on from the revival. We believe that the revival of the Irish whiskey industry is well and truly underway. We're now in the Renaissance. We're well and truly into the Renaissance now. So the next series will be probably something else beginning with R.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Revolution. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
The Irish whiskey revolution.
So will we
go for it?
Will we get ready to?
Yes. Let's taste whiskey number 4. So whiskey number 4, I absolutely love this because it showcases what a single cask is. So like I said earlier, we put the single pot still into a number of casks, and we came across one that we tasted, just one cask.
Is it okay to cleanse your palate with a Guinness, by the way?
Yeah, go ahead. We came across one cask. It was a red wine. It was a Chateau Bécheville. Don't ask me much about them because I don't know that much. It's red wine. I can always learn more, but basically, yeah, we put single pot still into these red wine casks. God, is it amazing. So, yeah, does it fit into the core range? Probably not. But does it showcase how we are trying to grow the single pot still category? Yes, it does. Absolutely, yes, it does. This is a brilliant showcase of how great the single pot still category is. I've never been a fan of the spots. I'll tell you that right now, but that's got nothing to do with the producer. Powers John's Lane is one of my favorite all-time Irish whiskies, outside of Teeling, obviously. But I mean, tell me this doesn't compete with the Louis Vuitton and those kind of red wine influenced single pot still.
Absolutely.
Like the nose is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Like red fruits mixed with demerara sugar, but it's not baking. Like cherries, like candied cherries, but not particularly sweet. A little bit of red apple. What have I written down? Berry fruits, barley, cereal. Yeah, malt. There's malt there. So this is bottled at 61.9. So be careful. But I don't think this drinks as a 60% whiskey. Like this is also a great example. Like it's not going to blow the head off you. Obviously, it'll stand up to 1 or 2 or 40 drops of water, but it's not going to blow the head off you. Apple Danish, that's a good shout.
Sorry.
How much?
So we've got a question from the floor here as to how much, what's the price of this particular whiskey?
So you can go into the distillery and bottle your own. So essentially draw it from the cask, label it, seal it for 100 quid. So that's, yeah, basically you fill your own experience. You do everything yourself.
Yeah.
We're saving on cost.
It's saving a cost, yeah. Our own labor. So what? Is it what? Is it leaving tomorrow? Yeah. I mean, is there? There probably isn't a whole lot of single cask strength single pot stills out there, is there?
Not a lot. We are starting to release a few more. So obviously we're starting to get to that limit now where the age statement stuff is quite the commodity. So it tends to go to the right place, your markets where they're going to shift a bit of small batch and your real market drivers. But the interest in single cask, single pot still from the likes of Germany, France, Belgium has been amazing, and they're flying to it. It's so great, and it's a testament to the level of interest from Europe on single pot still in the category of single pot still. So we're also seeing it in Ireland. We did the Bank single cask, James Fox's single cask, and we'll probably do a few more. So and then the most important one, or the biggest one after this one, will be the Wonders of Wood series. So thanks to the Teeling tribe and you guys that were part of the Wonders of Wood, you've seen the evolution of the Wonders of Wood series. That looks to become a global release now, with the US saying, what are you doing with this Wonders of Wood thing? So basically what's going to happen is we take the boxes from the Brabazon series and we're going to evolve it into the Wonders of Wood series. And that's now going to be a global release moving forward with high ABV single pot still aged in unique wood casks.
I mean, often the whole idea of a single cask it's not as tied down as, some of the GI stuff. So often, it might not actually be cask strength or it can be recast and still called a single cask if it's been in, the same liquid, just transferred, not blended. So, yeah. I mean, what's the plan with this? Is it one individual cask of Chateau Bécheville red wine in Dublin? And what happens when that's emptied? Is it a different cask of something else, or
So that's
generally if someone buys a bottle of this and distills it or pours it from the distillery, is that limited to like 300 bottles or whatever produced from the
Yeah.
cask?
So basically, the way the fill your owns work is literally Alex, when he's tripping up to the warehouse, he will put aside special casks. And previous to this, the previous fill your own was the virgin American oak component of the single pot still. So it was just the virgin cask. So he got one really good virgin cask, put that aside, and that was the fill your own. And then he came across this red wine, put that aside. I don't know what'll be next, but yeah, it's always chopping and changing because, again, you want people to come back to the distillery. You don't want them to just say, I've done the tour, I don't need to go back.
Yeah.
It's always about the evolution. We just did a refurb at the distillery, put a whole bunch of Dublin street art in there. We fixed up the stills. We got a fresh lick of paint in there on the stills. Got a brand new condenser in, and yeah, always looking to upgrade our fill your own experience as well.
And it's great to be able to try these. From our point of view, generally is only available from the distillery exclusives.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and so these could be collectibles in themselves. Each piece of these pot still single cask, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, that's the thing. So the way that we kind of worked out the payment for tonight, I actually robbed two of these because I didn't want to rob them from the distillery. So I robbed them from James Kilgannon and I said, I'll pay you back. And he's like, every day, he's like, can I get them back yet? Yeah, totally.
Martin's asked here, is there scope for a 3D whiskey single cask? Can it be done?
Yeah.
I'll
make him do your tour.
Have you done anything yet with any society? I mean, is it something you have done, or
What's that?
like a bottling for a society?
Oh, it's becoming more of the conversation. Yeah, it's a commercial thing, so I can't promise you a single cask, but I can put you in touch with the guys that do that. So yeah, more and more whiskey societies are becoming okay with the concept. Previously, it'd be distributors. So your countrywide importers or distributors, they would take on that responsibility because it's not a small insignificant sum to buy a whole cask. But I think a lot of people are now seeing the value in it, and they know that they can pull through the whole bottle, the whole thing. Like literally,
we're seeing with different societies. Waterford's done it recently, and it's definitely becoming part of the feature of a society.
Yeah. To answer the question, we're a lot more open to the idea. Previously, with the age statement stock, it wasn't something we jump at. Like someone asked us to buy a barrel of one of the old stock
we moved from the old whiskey bonders is in a pub was the bonder would bottle it. Now it's like the bars is that or the whiskey society. So it's
exactly
it's great. Yeah, it's great to see.
Any questions? What do you guys think of this one?
The one question that we missed was around a release, Renaissance 5 release date before we just totally get off that subject. Is there an idea of a date?
I heard there's a big Irish holiday coming up.
Okay.
Whiskey Live.
We'll say no more. Whiskey Live was moved. I think it's going to happen a bit earlier.
Yeah, but it's a big party for us.
It'll be soon enough.
We'll say nothing about St. Patrick's Day.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
It's going to be a long weekend for me. Yeah. Thursday, Friday. But yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I'm really happy with this one though. I think this does remarkably well.
Yeah, it really single malt is like it brings back to years ago when I was young when my nan would bake a cake. It was okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, but she'd bake an apple pie. You
the 61.9 is getting to them now.
Huh? Yeah, but it's just it really you can really taste the kind of matured apple or kind of a sugared.
You can.
Yeah, so it's really nice. Like that would be my main to go to now because I haven't tasted before. So as a younger person, okay, I will be there now. So
it's very approachable though for the percentage it is.
Yeah,
right?
that's one's. Yeah, it's like
you wouldn't think it's that high.
I've had a few 60% now and that blow my mind. So I can actually taste a lot of flavors.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you're not just getting burn. there is there's a delicacy there, which you wouldn't expect of a whiskey at 62% ABV.
We blame Dave Amara, Cask Strength Crusade.
So I think we can kill the myth now that like good whiskey is killed on the young, like so.
Are there any questions, or can we throw out and ask everyone which one was their favorite?
Yeah. Okay. So hands up for number one. Okay.
Wait, we did have a question. Only have you a question, no?
I was generally interested about the market growth that was being talked about, like, where are you seeing, which countries are you seeing the most growth in, where is it surprising, what do you think is actually contributing to the growth of Irish whiskey over Scottish whiskey, can you see it falling off, general things on that.
Okay, I'll take that. James, you want to relay that?
What countries surprised you the most with Irish whiskey?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it's not the usual suspects. You know, I mean, if you looked at the growth, like I was saying earlier, you know, we expected this. That's made up of your America, France, Germany, Ireland, obviously, UK, obviously. You know, they have their usual growth. They're not seeing this. They're seeing a consistent growth. What we're seeing this in is Russia, South Africa, Nigeria. These markets are exploding. These emerging markets, India, they're all like all of the Irish whiskey, please.
And I mean, is that any way to do with the whole GI and you know, that it's been more, you know, focusing where the counterfeit stuff basically has been taken off the market in Russia, and you have to, you know, it has to be GI compliant.
I think it's going back to what it was, what Irish whiskey was. Irish whiskey was always, up until the beginning of the 20th century, was the premium whiskey. And I think people like yourselves, and we're going to say, you know, Middleton, but, you know, the Bushmills, the Towers, all the Irish whiskies, they are producing quality product. Yeah. I think people realize that, and they're beginning to realize that, you know, Irish whiskey is a quality product, and they understand that, and they are buying it. So
consumers becoming more aware, essentially, yeah.
And it's marketing. It's nothing with your guys. I mean, as you said, Stephen's spectacular at the marketing gig. It's getting out there. But Irish whiskey overall is a quality product. I think that's reflected in the sales throughout the world.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, it's not just a flash in the pan. You know, I mean, the growth would be stagnant if it was just, oh, there's a fad and then dies off. It's actually like Irish whiskey's booming, and God, Irish whiskey's doing really well, and the flavor, these bottles are being opened and they're being rated highly and they're winning awards. So I think it's a consistent growth as opposed to just, you know, a passing kind of phase.
Well, no longer just a cocktail whiskey. It's, you know, it's a drinking
shooter
whiskey,
in the US. It's not just a shooter in the US anymore.
No, it's a drinker. Yeah. Absolutely.
And look, I'll give credit where it's due, although I don't want to. But I was in Russia there a couple of years ago, and I bet you can't guess what the most popular Irish whiskey was when I was there.
Teeling.
No, not Dunphy's.
No.
Eddie.
I'll give you a hint. It's made by a UFC fighter.
Oh
no. Oh, God. Well, it just shows if
you just started a riot in the room here, for God's sake.
You start at the bottom, you work your way up. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, he's got some fans. They're drinking Irish whiskey. They're tasting better Irish whiskey, you know.
But I mean, generally, has that done a lot for Irish whiskey in the US? Has it elevated to a whole new level? It seems to have gotten gin drinkers into whiskey, and, you know, the whole idea.
That has always been a thing ever since the rise of Jameson. There is a natural progression from white spirits to Irish whiskey. Irish whiskey has always been far more approachable for a white spirits drinker. Very few white spirits drinkers will jump up to Lefroy, Gardbeg, Lagavulin. They might go round through like Auchintosh and Glenlivet Way, but yeah, Irish whiskey on the whole is a lot more approachable for a gin, vodka, Bacardi kind of drinker. So yeah, there's a similar kind of flavor palette there that they can find their way and navigate into. So yeah, it's been remarkably well. I don't think that the category is as delicate as it once was. It's not the Jamisons, the Tullamore Dews, the Bushmills of the 80s anymore. Like even those brands are producing rich, bold, heavy cask strength single malts. But certainly Irish whiskey on the most part is a much more approachable spirit category than some.
Fantastic, yeah. Any other questions from the floor or comments, or how you found the single cask pastel versus the mainstream release of?
I'd like to know about the bottle. Where did they get the net? How did they go about it?
Yeah, just the style of the bottles, where they're made, and why they look as they do look, and
So the Douglas bottle just. Which one's that?
yeah,
Do you take back empty bottles and refill for free?
we're obviously drinking a lot of them down here. So.
No. I take back full bottles and return them empty. The Douglas bottle that we kind of became synonymous with was just something the lads bought. Like they bought off shelf. It wasn't something they designed. The label was obviously designed by Jack and Stephen and the team, the marketing team at that time. But the Douglas bottle, yeah, it was off shelf. They had the dark green version and the clear version, and we've since made it our own. We have kind of made it our own with the embossing. So with the Brabazon series, where the hell am I? The Brabazon series there with the embossing, that has bled over into these ones. So the small batch now has the embossing on the bottom here and then on the back. So you can see the Phoenix on the back there.
Oh yeah.
So we're just making those Douglas bottles, that's the name of the bottle, our own. The Revival bottles that, oh God, sorry. The squat and Revival.
Yeah.
Those ones, there we go. Those ones. So yeah, they were designed off a whiskey carafe. The crystal decanters you see in movies that no one really uses anymore. So that's what these are, the decanters. So that was the decanter bottle, and really happy with that one. But we decided to evolve it into the taller version. And yeah, I really like it. Like I said, it's all about the packaging, the premium packaging. Jack is really good at what he does, works with different producers on that one as well.
What's the decision-making process in a colored bottle, the dark brown bottle versus a clear bottle? Why is one chosen over the other, and for what?
The color of the liquid.
The color of the liquid. But generally, you don't use any coloring or chill filter anyway, right? So
no. So essentially, the first one was this one, and as you know, it's a fully matured red wine product. So when they made this, it was like, God, that's pretty. We don't want to put it in the dark green because pour yourself a glass of the single malt. It's a little bit on the hay colored side, whereas this has got that lovely ruby quality to it. So it's like, man, it'd be a shame to put that into the dark green. The same happened with Brabazon. So Brabazon 1 was dark, and then number 2, the port was lovely dark in color. Sherry was a little bit on the lighter side, so went back to black, and then the Carcavelos was light. So yeah, it's really about the color of the liquids. My favorite one is probably this one. Like, look at the color of that.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. That single grain is unbelievable. Yeah.
So yeah, when this came
sold out now, or is that still available?
What's that?
Is that sold out now, or is that still available?
No, yeah, it's still available. Yeah, it's still available.
Still good. Yeah.
Ali has a Celtic whiskey. Yep.
It's really
Irish
good.
malt as well.
Yeah.
So you're Andrew. Can I just ask a question? Just I see what Patron Tequila, right, would go back to whiskey. Is there any difference between lead-free crystal glasses, bottles? I mean, Patron do lead-free glasses.
All glass crystal now is lead free.
Lead-free.
Yeah, you got to be very careful with you
Older bottles.
older bottles and older decanters. You basically have if your whiskey's in there for more than an hour and a half, you are going to drain out any lead that's left in there. These are old bottles, so there won't be that much left in there, but that can lead to issues. But just don't use them. That's the best way.
With some bottles no advertising lead-free.
Yeah, but all crystalline glassware has been lead-free for about 20, 30 years now. Yeah. The lead crystal is anti-crystal.
Okay.
You're not going to get that poisoning off of a Teeling.
So you buy a 32-year-old Teeling. You're buying the whiskey, not the 32-year-old glass.
All the glasses. The proper 12, we're not sure where the poisoning comes from. But
Would you recommend any of the books on his shelf behind
What are those books you have? Are they any good on your shelf?
You might have heard of that one.
Oh yeah,
everyone's got that
Fun
one.
on. Hopefully we have him as a guest at some point. Yeah.
This is a good one from a bartending perspective. Definitely check this one out if you're in a pub or anything like that. Really, really good one. A few different kind of cocktail. I probably shouldn't have this one up.
Yeah, I have that too. Yeah.
It's
a great book.
This one I kind of liked, but they only really talk about Teeling and Jameson from the Irish whiskey standpoint. Much more on Scotch, but it's still interesting. But I was a bit disappointed when I only read about Teeling and Middleton. But sure, it was written a few years back. Basically whiskey in this room.
Can you go to your bedroom when you're at it? So. In terms of mash bills or cocktails or what? Or? Yeah, is there an old Teeling recipe book? Obviously there is since the distillery started, but was there something to go to prior for the distillery to use when it first became its own Teeling distillery?
You mean cocktails?
No,
the mash bills.
Yeah.
Is there a booklet out there, say, on the Cooley mash bills they used to use?
Not for public release, obviously.
I mean, probably, Alex. Like I've seen old, so we have obviously shared drives and things like that. And I got bored one day, I started looking around. So there's some old documentation from the Cooley days, but I don't think they draw too much experience from it. Alex obviously worked there, and so did Jack and Stephen. But I wouldn't say it's part of the day-to-day for the Teeling Whiskey Company 5-6 years in. Maybe at the start, but not so much nowadays.
So yeah, we'll get a vote here of what people have found as their favorite, and
we'll go for hands up for the first one. Okay.
No.
Okay. Hands up for the second one.
Go on.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Third one. And the final one.
Oh, we've got a lot for the distillery exclusive. Wow.
Yeah.
Twice as many.
I think it's a kind of a draw breaker. Is it a
draw breaker?
Draw. Yeah, I think the 3 and 4. Yeah, it's a draw breaker. Yeah.
I think
there you
4.
go.
I think maybe we had one extra. We didn't vote.
Is alive and well.
Yeah. For myself now, I think number 4 did it.
Definitely took it over the edge.
For myself.
The nose on 4, but the flavor on 2.
Yeah, 2. Yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, the nose on 4 and the flavor on 3.
2, is it? Flavor on 2.
2. Yeah.
We're doing a mashup here.
Yeah.
We're going to be our own blending experts.
Maybe we need another round.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. A whiskey blender.
At home, number 4, number 3. Yeah. It's pretty varied. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. I like that though, because again, it showcases people like different flavors within whiskey.
And a shout out to Lucinda, number 3. She's an absolute massive whiskey enthusiast. So,
Go Lucinda.
Yeah.
Woo!
Woo!
Amazing. All right. Well, perfect. Look, I'll thank you all so much. And again, apologize that I couldn't be there in person. I look forward to be able to do it. So big shout out to all of you that made the trip and supported the bar and supported the Whiskey Society. Thank you so much for having me. And then obviously a big thank you to those that joined us online and all the questions and keeping it engaging, because no one wants to hear me talk at you for 2 hours. Is that how long we've been doing this?
No, it's been great. Thank you.
I think we should all give a big round of applause to Robert tonight. Absolutely fantastic. It's been an absolute amazing experience tonight for myself, educational wise and tasting wise. So absolutely phenomenal. And thanks for Jerry Flanders again. It's just absolutely amazing night. So we hope we'll have another kind of tasting in the future with maybe a different range. So
yeah,
keep us in your books. Hopefully,
well,
we can get you.
Can I ask to give you guys a round of applause for putting this all together and organizing it and getting everyone here and sending out the whiskeys? Look, guys, that's a tremendous amount of work. I know just how much goes into it. So, look, thank you so much for reaching out to me, and fair play to you for putting this on. So well done to you.
thank you very much, Robert. Yeah.
And
It's been a great host. Yeah.
and you might regret now asking us all to come up to Dublin. So.
We'll be outside your doors.
Yeah.
In the bus.
Yeah.
We'll bring what? We'll bring what?
Yeah. Yeah. So, thank you so much, and thanks for everyone joining us tonight. So that's
Yeah.
all.
No problem. Enjoy the pint, guys. Have one for me.
We've gleaned loads of information from you, and we hope to have you back in some other time.
Yeah, don't be sharing on social media. I like my job.
Too late.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Well,
All right.
thanks for having me, and enjoy the pints.
Yeah. Can we speak soon? Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much.